Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Send It ATV podcast. Today, I have a great guest coming from Idaho. Going to talk about the area there. It's just an incredible riding area, just incredibly beautiful with majestic views and such. He is actually the president of the Magic Valley ATV club there in Idaho. And without further ado, Mr. Kent Oliver, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Shane. Thank you for inviting us on.
Oh, well, thank you for agreeing to meet with us today and, sharing your story and talking about your club. You have a lot of interesting things going on there and that really people need to know about.
Exactly.
Um, so, what is the makeup of your club? What type of members do you have and the vehicles and such?
The demographics of our club is we've got some younger people and we've got a lot of older retired folks.
Okay.
So we've got one rider who's on a motorcycle, but he's converted to an ATV. So we're ATV, the side by side 50-inch up to some of the bigger 72 and 60-inch machines.
Okay. Great, great. So that's quite a spread of members and such.
It
Basically,
is.
come one, come all.
Hey, we're family oriented. That's exactly how we want it to be. We completely believe in no alcohol on our rides, so
Right.
want to go out and enjoy it.
Great. That's awesome. Um, Now, how many members are in your club?
We have over 150 members in our club, and that's usually the low end of our membership. And with COVID, it's a lot of people are still kind of out, don't know what they're going to do. So
Right. Well, hopefully, as things improve, that'll go back up for you and get more people involved and such, um, and so forth. Um, Now, what is it you guys do with the? I understand you guys work with some of the land managers there in Idaho and such. What all is it that you're doing?
well, we as a club are we work with our public land managers, primarily with the Forest Service, because that's where the bulk of our trail systems are. So we work with them on maintaining the trails to make sure that they're safe for the users. If there's any structures or anything we need to build, we'll help them take care of that. We write letters in support for some of their projects that they have going on. But we're boots on the ground. We go out there and we brush trails, we move down trees, and we put some sweat equity into making sure the trails are safe by with shovels and plaskies and everything else, and providing meals for people that want
Right.
to come out to work.
Well, absolutely. We'll work for food, but
Exactly.
essentially, just making the sport better for everyone. And, I'm, charging everybody or challenging everybody to at least give one full solid day of, helping out. And it's amazing. Like if everybody were to do that just once, a season, it's amazing how much work can get done um, with all the
Oh yeah,
different crews out there.
if you contact the local groups or even the local public land managers, they can direct you, or if they've got projects that they're doing, they're looking for volunteers all the time to help with various different things, whether it's trail maintenance or even some of the campground repairs and stuff that they need to have done. So
Right, right. Yeah, and it's just great, just people getting together and so forth. Um, how long has the Magic Valley ATV Club been in place?
we originally were part of the Magic Valley Trail Machine Association. Our members branched off from there in about 2007. So what we did is when they branched off, and I wasn't affiliated with them at that time, but when they branched off was so they could focus on the 50-inch trails for the ATVs. Um, what was going on about that time was the Forest Service was starting to go through their travel planning process,
Mm-hmm.
and so they wanted to make sure that there was an equal representation for the single track trails that were already established and to be, and some that would be either eliminated or rebuilt, and to make sure that we had the riding opportunities also for the ATVs.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I mean, it was about that time when ATV, the UTVs and side by sides and such were getting really coming into the marketplace.
Yeah, it was a little bit later when the side by side started coming in. It was ATVs. ATVs started actually. The first ATV that I been affiliated with was 1984. It was a Yamaha Moto 4. We bought it for my dad on the farm. So we got tired of taking him to the hospital because he was trying to pick his motorcycle up because it fell over on a ditch bank. So, and then
But
side by
you
side
refused,
started coming in later on. Yeah.
right? Yeah. Uh, so what was the, talking about that, what was your first ATV experience? Well, I mean, you said that was the Yamaha then, or?
Yeah, it was a little rear wheel drive, solid axle, rough riding son of a gun. So, but yeah, I started with it on the farm, and then I started using it hunting. Then we started taking it camping with us, and of course, then there wasn't very many trails was wide enough for it.
Right.
But so then it started progressing from there as the trails started getting wider, and
Hmm.
50-inch trails were starting to be established.
Cool. What's one of your funniest stories that you have in your past, or even recently, that makes you chuckle?
Well, there's a couple of them, and I got to tell the first one because he's on my predecessor as the past president of the club. We were on a trail ride a few years ago, and it's during the winter months, and fall and spring, when we can't get up into the higher elevations to ride because of the snowpack. We
Right.
start riding a lot more desert. And of course, it's cooler in the winter to ride the desert than it is in the summertime. It just gets too hot. And so we're riding along on a trail, and he wasn't exactly sure where the trail was. So he was kind of holding to the bottom of the draw. And then all of a sudden, him and his wife, he had a side by side, he's riding a razor, him and his wife just all of a sudden just went out of sight. And it's like all we could see was the side of the machine. It's like, what the heck happened? Well, we have what's called tumbleweeds out in our country here, and they can be
Hmm.
anywhere from the size of a little beach ball to the full size of a side by side. I mean, they grow big out here.
Right.
And he was just riding along, and there was some tumbleweeds there, and he didn't think much of it. And he rode right along that edge, and that was a big deep wash. So it put him and his wife down into it. First he was like, "Oh my gosh, hope they're okay," and then there was the chuckle of you know going on. So took some work, but we got him winched up out of there. Had to flip the machine back up so we could get him uprighted and everything, and then we do a hot dog ride in one of our favorite places in the spring, and I was leading the ride. And again, we have some washes that we just love to play in and ride down, and we're going down this wash. Well, we weren't able to ride last year because of COVID. Things was all shut down. We just couldn't
Mhm.
get out and ride like we wanted to. And so we're going down this wash and hadn't been ridden. So a lot of the tumbleweeds for 2 years now have built up in there, hadn't been ridden over, knocked
All
down. So
right.
wife and I are going along there, and I'm looking at these tumbleweeds, this one big mass. I said, I think you can get through there. Well, I made the mistake and hung to the right instead of going to the left. And the next thing we know, we're just bouncing like a bronco, just almost trying to flip over. It's like, what the heck? Well, there was some sod that had fallen off the bank we didn't know, and we'd gone over that. So we were stuck in between them. And so we had to hook, told the wife, I'm sitting there trying to go back and forth. And I said, you can get out if you want to. And I don't even think I finished the sentence, the conversation. She was out of the razor and up on the top, and she had her camera going. I mean, it was
Oh, of
just that
course. Yeah.
she's going to video it. And, but yeah, it was quite interesting. We worked on it a while, and I was able to maneuver it around. We got a strap on me to keep me from flopping over, and we got it up out of the wash. But you just never know. You just never
Right.
know.
I mean,
Everybody was nobody was hurt, and it was kind of fun.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's just it. As long as no one gets hurt, and you have a good story afterward, and machine's not hurt too bad or whatever, a little scratch or something. But that's funny. Oh, that's great. Um, what's one of the best places you've ever ridden to?
Oh man, it's hard to just pick one spot. Every part of Idaho, which is the gem state and it's a hidden gem,
Hmm.
is it all has a different view, a different thing that it brings to the table for scenic value. And we've got some real good 850-inch trails in our neck of the woods here in what we call the South Hills of the Sawtooth National Forest. We've got some good trail riding that we can do in the northern part. A lot of it's roads, jeep trails and stuff.
Right.
but we can get to some mountaintops up there in the 10, 11,000 foot range, and you can see for miles. And I a guy who had retired from um, oh shoot, I can't think of the name of the police department. He retired to back east, and he moved his family out here to retire, and he went to work for our police officer standards and training. And I said, hey, why don't you come out and go for a ride with us? Because he was talking about riding the Hatfield and McCoy Trail
Oh,
and in the east part. I says, oh, I says, that's nothing. So he come, we got an ATV ready for him, and he went out, we went riding, and we rode up on top of this big hill, and he looked, his man, this is pretty good. And I says, oh, you can see nothing yet because it's mostly roads to get where we were going. And so we get up on this big mountaintop, and we're looking around, and he says, man, this is really good. And I says, yeah. And I says, right over there in the distance, he says, yeah, he said big old mountain range over there, the Ruby Mountains and the Oahe Mountains and the Jarbidge Mountains over there. He says, yeah. I said, we can ride that. Matter of fact, we can ride from here to that. He goes, no way. Uh-huh. So he turned and looked to the south and said, all those mountains there in northern Nevada. He says, yeah, we have access. We can get to that. He couldn't believe it. The difference between what you guys have on the East Coast and what we have on the
mhm.
West.
Oh
See,
yeah.
Idaho is about 63% of Idaho is public lands. And so that's what makes a big difference. And of course,
Mhm.
when it comes to the riding style, that's changes in another direction. So
Right, right. That's cool. Very cool. Yeah, we're definitely behind out here, but fortunately with the, a lot of hard work, like people such as yourself, club members, and really it's the leadership though that really put in the blood, sweat, and tears on a regular basis. They're connecting all these trail systems, and more people are selling the idea of what it is to be able to leave from your backyard and hit a trail system and just keep going. If you want to get
oh yeah.
somewhere, it's just a matter of knowing what trails to take in order to get there. But we are definitely behind up here, on the East Coast. But more and more as time goes on, especially with last year and the amount of people that were involved, some big things happened, and we still have a long ways to go, though.
Yeah, but it just takes time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that for us that COVID did is it brought out a lot more users, got congregated in an area. See, for us in southern Idaho, there's a lot of places to ride during the spring. We can't
Mhm.
get into some places because of seasonal closures, snowpack, that kind of thing.
Right.
But what COVID did to us is some of the areas to the south, like Moab, Utah, um, and some of that prime area that people would be traveling to in the springtime to ride, it was all closed. And people wanted to get out. The weather's beautiful, it's warm, so they started recreating closer to home. Not a problem. I advocate for people, you recreate close to home, know where you're going, but know where you're going. Know before you go. The problem we ran into last year, and this really created a lot of tension in our area, was we don't have the open riding areas. We don't have like state parks where you can just go and just ride wherever.
Hmm.
We have a few areas like the Bruno or the St. Anthony Sand Dunes, big riding areas, very popular. It's a very busy place, but for the big mecca, but we just don't have that. What we have is we have a lot of trail riding or Jeep trails and
Hmm.
roads that get you into some beautiful places, some fantastic places. But when you get individuals who get out there and they just tear up the country and destroy livelihoods, we've got some areas that are private land. We've got some public lands that has a multi-use. Um, there's a lot of grazing in Idaho,
Hmm.
big lot of grazing in Idaho. So a lot of the meadows, the marshes, the grasslands, that's somebody's livelihood. That's
Right.
a rancher who's got that allotment, who has very big restrictions placed on him by the public land managers on when he can graze it, how he can graze it, how long he can be there when he can get there, or that
Hmm.
family can get there. But when you get a group of people that go out there and they look at it and they just spin cookies, riding all over it and destroy it, it may take a year or two before it recovers.
Right.
Point. And then with the fires, that has really, really hit us hard on the west. We had one fire that in our area, which was over 90,000 acres of some of our prime 50-inch trail riding area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all in a seasonal or in a fire closure right now. Maybe it's going to open in July 30th, which we would be able to ride it usually in June, depending on the snowpack. But it's in July before it's scheduled to reopen unless the ranger opens it earlier. We're just all, as we spoke earlier, it's just going to be depending on what our runoff does for us. And I don't
Right.
think it's going to be too favorable because we've had some real warm temperatures. And then the other day we had some exceptionally high winds, and that's like a blowtorch.
Right.
So that snowpack starts to come off on steep hillsides that literally has very little, if any, vegetation because of the fire. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the makings for mudslides,
Oh, right.
rock
Yeah.
slides, and everything. So I know there's a couple of trails that probably will not get open because of rocks keep coming down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soil's not stable enough. So it's just know before you go, know where you can just go out and just open ride, and know where you're just a trail ride, and respect that. That's I sat on a kind of a steering committee with the Idaho Rangeland Coalition
Mm-hmm.
collaboration. And that's one of I mean, ranchers are really, they really, kind of want to work with people, but when people are destroying their land just
Yep.
because the road goes across private land, it's private. People just drive across the road, you get to the public land on the other side and enjoy it. They just,
Right.
it's it does create some problems, and we've worked so hard over the years to try and foster this relationship, this cooperative effort with these other organizations, these groups, and just to have one summer set us back.
You know, really, it takes thousands of hours to get one thing put into place, and 5 seconds of someone's poor decisions can ruin all of it. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
just, it's
yeah.
amazing how badly one person can affect everyone. And it's a shame. It really is a shame. And so, where would someone go to find out, like, you don't know before you go? Where would be a good resource for them to go to?
Well, if you're going to recreate on the National Forest Service lands,
Mm-hmm.
you can find out which Forest Service um, division it is. Like we have Sawtooth National Forest here, we have Boise National Forest, Nez Perce. There's there's a map. You just go to the Forest Service, they'll give you a map of the state. You can go in and select where the area you want to ride, and then you just follow their links
Mm-hmm.
to their what they call their motor vehicle use maps.
Right.
On our website, I try to maintain that link for in our area. So Northern Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, where our members go into, those links to those Forest Service motor vehicle maps where they can go in. You can download them as a PDF. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got it. You can either print a copy or put it on your tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And then another place that you can get those is through the Avenza program, because they work closely with the Avenza
Okay.
programs.
Yeah.
Once you download that, you can go in and you can search their library or their store and get those maps. They're free. The motor vehicle
Yep.
use maps are free. And each year, if there's an update, they'll notify you there's an update, and you just download the new update once you've got it downloaded. There's mapping systems like Gaia and
Right.
some of those other ones.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I found with some of those, I'm not saying that they're bad, they're really good, because I run Gaia myself as well as Avenza. What I
Mm-hmm.
find with some of those is some of their motor vehicle use maps that they have on their sites
Mm-hmm.
aren't quite accurate, because there's some changes that comes all the time.
Right.
Some forests, there's no change whatsoever. Matter of fact, I think one of them in Nevada hasn't had any changes since like 2014 is their
Mm.
most recent motor vehicle use map. They just haven't done any trail changes. So
Right.
it hasn't been changed. But like the Sawtooth comes out with one every year they have a new one. Sometimes there's a minor change and sometimes there's no change whatsoever. But what they're doing is they're sending it back out again with the 2021 number on it,
Right.
so that you know you've got the most current one there is.
Sure. And that makes
So,
sense. Absolutely.
right.
Um,
And the Bureau of Land Management is um, going through some travel planning. So they don't really have, for say, a lot of travel maps out there to let you know, what's this, what's that. But they're working on. There are some out there, so it's just kind of hit and miss. One of the biggest things for like Gaia, for instance, there's the layer of public lands that
mhm.
you can overlay into your map, your base map that you're going to use when you ride in an area.
Right.
And so
Yep.
you'll have a color code. What is state lands, what is BLM lands, and what is Forest Service lands. And then you'll see the white, sometimes square, rectangle, or polygon sided that is probably private lands.
Right. Right. Mm.
Watch those. So the Forest Service is pretty good about. They've already got their travel planning done. They did that back in the early 2000s, going through, and I think it was 2012 before we or 13 before we finally solidified some of them because they get challenged, and a lot of the challenges actually came from the environmental groups.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just great, just make sure you're, following those maps, events and maps and so forth, and just stay on the trails. You
Yes.
know, just you can't, you know, emphasize enough, people is just stay on the trails so that way you're not taking away our privilege because it's not a right. When someone
No.
lets you ride across their land, they're extending a privilege to you.
Yes.
But, and so that's great. I mean, thank you. Let's see. What's on your is there a place that someplace in the world or in the nation that you haven't been to that you'd really love to be able to go to?
Oh, well, the wife, because I'm semi-retired, and the
Hmm.
wife is getting ready to look at the same prospect. We've been watching. I got hooked into overlanding. If you've seen any of the overlanding movies or stuff on YouTube
Hmm.
and those, and I've kind of gotten into an interest in that because we like to take drives, and sometimes we'll go and camp in an area and do some day trips out of that. But when you work, you're only there for a couple of days and then come back, or you got to take a vacation to go and do this. But usually it's family oriented on a lot of your vacations, so it's hard to
Hmm.
take just a week and just go and ride and play somewhere. I've got daughters in Alaska and down in California, so it's a long ways for South Central Idaho to just go, and so we have to plan our trips to be able to go and see our daughters. But we just looking at some of that stuff. I mean, Colorado would be great. I know that there's my brother was in the Park Service there, and I know there's a lot of restrictions that are in there, but there's a lot of trails that are open. Um, and Utah's got some beautiful country in it,
Hmm.
beautiful colors. They're rocky. You go down to canyons down there and you just got all like 7 or 8 different colors in the rocks.
Wow. Yeah.
So we just to it, and we'd love to go back east and just experience some of the trail system that you guys have back there too, just to get a well-rounded.
Definitely. I mean, between Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, and even Pennsylvania is really doing a lot of amazing things. And Western Pennsylvania and even northern New Hampshire is, you want to see something awesome, get to northern New Hampshire in the beginning of October. You'll never experience
Oh,
a fall like that
oh yeah.
until you see something like those. So there is definitely a lot to see. Um, and then there's one thing on mine is I really want to go check out the caves in West Virginia and the old coal mining caves that you can actually
Yes.
ride through with your
Oh
side
yeah,
by
yeah.
side. And
Yes, I've seen those on YouTube that I'm going, oh, that'd be just awesome.
yeah, just completely different, unique, and so forth. And but yeah, so that would really be a good time. Um, so what are some of the things that fellow enthusiasts in your area can do to come help you this year and uh, become a club member for one, but
Well, yeah,
beyond that?
it for our club, it's not that expensive to become a member, and you get a lot in return, and that's all. And but the thing is it's the numbers. We know that there's a lot of, we're just a small tip of the number of people that are riding, ATVs, motorcycles, and
Mhm.
side by sides. But it's the numbers that we can help, and the money that we can help go towards funding legislation, whether it's positive legislation we want to see through that's going to help us,
Mhm.
or if it's to battle the legislation that's going to be a hindrance to to what we want, our
Right.
recreational interest. So we try to advocate for everybody is to come out and help us. Like I said, just a day, you'd be surprised what you can accomplish.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll put in a couple of weekends, usually depending on what we've got going, projects we couldn't get done the year before and try and get finished up. And we can cover several miles depending on what it is we have to do. We
Right.
try to brush, as we have certain trails in the South Hills, we try to brush, so that you can see the rocks, because steep country, you're going to have your trail system, but then you have
Mhm.
the right here, you have that steep hillside, you got grasses that are falling down, you got sagebrush that's overgrown, so you can't see during the course of the environmental impact how sometimes there's a rock that might stick out on that uphill side, and everybody kind of, um, whether it's a single track motorcycle, a bicycle, or a hiker, or a equine rider, they want to hang to the outside, away from the hillside. But for ATVs, side by sides, when they're going to want to stay away from the edge so that they don't fall off, and so sometimes they don't see that rock, and they hit it, and it launches them over before you know it. So we've had that happen with one of our members. He flipped it. He broke his pelvis, punctured a lung. We had to airlift him off the top of the mountain.
Mm.
And that's kind of what happened. He just didn't see the rock, and before he knew it, it was already up and over.
Right.
So get out and help. Join a club, then that keeps you informed of what's going on. It keeps you informed of what issues that we've got going on, and be that voice.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of Facebook groups, which is great. You're a group. I'd like to see some of their administrators say, "Hey, we heard this group's going to be doing some work, and a lot of it's volunteer work.
Mhm.
We can get up there and we can accomplish a lot on helping get some of these projects cleaned up and finished."
Certainly. I mean, you just
Forest Service, their funding for trail maintenance goes away a lot. I don't know, out of this new legislation that came through prior to this new administration, how much is going to help with the trail maintenance and stuff. But I do know that our sticker fees is just $12 a calendar year,
Mhm.
and on your machine, what that goes is an IDPR, our Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation, has some trail cats. They just put on another crew for the trail rangers, and they will travel around the state, which that's far and few between, to try and get these guys to do a lot of projects. They have some trail cats, and they come in and do a fantastic job. And usually, a trail will stay pretty good for a few years. So it's just a little cleanup that we have to do, and then some of them we have to do some major work because it's just the demographics of the hillside or the area.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I mean, really, just get out there, get involved, help, many hands make light work. And it's
It
fun because
does.
you meet people that's like-minded. You're having fun doing a activity that's going to help the sport along and help sustain the sport. And you're showing the public landowners that are, allowing them, to use their land and such, that you're taking care of it.
Yes.
And it just puts
Yeah.
another bullet in your gun per se to help protect and stave off, the bad incidents.
Well, it is. And, I found a quote one time, and I can't remember exactly, and I've been trying to find it again. It was Forest Service, the director of the Forest Service, the Department of Agriculture at the time.
Hmm.
And basically what he said is the management of public lands will be easy because the users are going to argue. They're going to fight. And if they can't cooperate, it's easy for them because they can just go in and say, well, you guys aren't getting along. So go. And I've seen that happen in areas where a collaborative effort is put in a trail. And this is back in the single track days, but everybody complained about the noisy, stinky motorcycles. And so the motorcycle said, hey, we don't really need this trail. We got those other areas to ride. So they quit. Then the hikers and the horseback riders complained about the bicycles being too quiet. So they couldn't hear them coming down the trail. So they were trying to get them to have to put bells on. So when they're going around blind corners, they'd ring their bell. They stopped. And then you ended up with the complaints of what was being left on the trails. And it was just, and to this day, I don't think you can go up and find that trail anymore.
Right.
Benches are already sunken down into the soil.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, yeah.
That's too bad.
It is. It was a beautiful trail. I mean, it gave you a good vista of the Boulder Mountains and the Sawtooth and the Smoky Mountains and out of the Wood River Valley.
Right.
That's what it is.
Well, maybe one day it'll come back, or who knows?
It probably will. It probably will.
Mm-hmm.
But I doubt if you'll see a motorcycle or a motorized unit on
it. Well, we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah.
If people want to get information about your club or reach out to your club, how would they get a hold of you?
We have a website at mvatvr.org, and we just have all kinds of information about our club, and there's some links in there to the maps that we've talked about. I try and keep up to date with some of the publications from the Forest Service and the BLM that affects our riding area too. So,
okay, very good. And do you have a Facebook page or no?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We because the size of our group, we've gone to the website, and we also have for members. There's a member section only, because if you advertise a lot of your rides and they're too big, you can get yourself into trouble with our public land manager.
Right. Because
public
that's a lot
events.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So by keeping it private and just keeping it with our own, then we can avoid some of those things.
Sure, certainly. Well, Kent, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you sharing, your stories with us, and definitely talking about Idaho. What a beautiful state. And,
yes. And I had one, let's see, where is that? You had on here, was the president of motorcycle, the OHV group is in your area. I can't think of his name. It just skipped me.
Oh, in my area?
Yes. Maine or something like that.
Well, I'm in Massachusetts, but Andy Grignon is in New Hampshire, and then I have another gentleman down in Maryland that was on recently.
Maryland, I think it was, because he said he wanted to come to Colorado and Idaho, and he's a motorcycle rider.
Yes,
I can hook him up with some country for motorcycle riding that he will not believe.
Absolutely. Well, I'll make sure I get him acquainted with you, and you guys can hook that up for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I can get a hold of him and get him hooked up with our counterparts over at the Magic Valley Trail Machine Association, because they have a large complement of people that ride the motorcycles. And I mean, you could go backpacking on your motorcycle. That's how far you can ride in these areas. Right.
That would be cool. Well, yeah, got to make that happen. That's what this is about, getting people to meet each other from across the nation and so forth. And
yeah, it is.
Well, very good, sir. Well, thank you very much again.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Anytime.
And you keep up the good work with what you're doing.